We had a great interview on Sundays with Subscribers yesterday with Glen Morgan. So Glen Morgan is the founder of We the Governed. And he is a citizen journalist, government watchdog extraordinaire. He's the best government watchdog we have in the state. And I think we do a pretty good job, but this is what Glen does every day, day in, day out. And he does deep dives into things that I don't even know how he has time to do it. In fact, we were in here on the Sunday show and we were taping on Thursday and he brought us, he's like, I literally have it right here. He's like, put a bunch of documents on a drive for us that he didn't have time to look over in some story he thinks is interesting, but he's so inundated with things. He's like, hey, if you guys want to look over this. And I'm like, hell yeah. So this guy, he's done a ton of government watchdog stuff, but particularly he's been on Bob Ferguson's ass. And he's the one who came up with the two Bob Fergusons, where he found two Republicans named Bob Ferguson to have him run against the real Bob Ferguson, which again, I was like, I don't like it because I think it'll backfire, but it no doubt has put him on Bob Ferguson's shit list. I have no doubt in the world that if Bob Ferguson can find some sort of path toward retribution against Glen Morgan, he's going to do it. So we talked about a million things. I mean, I think we talked to him for like an hour and 15 minutes on the Sunday show yesterday. He's such a wealth of knowledge for what's happening in the state. So a lot of the conversation centered around how collectively we're going to pick up the slack of the mainstream media and be a watchdog of Bob Ferguson's administration. But there was something that came out that I thought would make you guys really happy, because I hadn't even thought about it. You know, we had all these losses in the state of Washington. And yeah, if you supported Donald Trump, like you could look at that as like, yeah, Donald Trump won though, but the politicians who are going to make the biggest impact on our lives in Washington state are all Democrats now. And some of them are really far left Democrats. And so to me, I'm still utterly depressed. But one of the things Glenn pointed out is that Donald Trump gets to choose a new United States attorney for the Western District of Washington and for all the other districts across the country. So he gets to pick a powerful federal investigator, if he will, who would be willing to take on cases involving government corruption, abuse of federal funds, right here in Washington state. Here's a clip from the interview.
The Republicans have historically, when there's been a Republican in office in the presidency, under the Bush administration, or even under Trump 1, they've historically not appointed very effective U.S. attorneys in those positions now. I would anticipate at this point in time that maybe somebody at the Trump administration's learned their lesson about having just somebody in there who's actually willing to look into public integrity for probably the first time in 40 years. Because I can tell you the U.S. Attorney's Office has never been involved in doing that in the state. And so there is a lot to hide for the people in political power in this state. And for the first time, probably in a generation, there may be some interest in actually looking into some of these issues.
Somebody needs to get in Trump's ear and let him know that we need a fighter in that position.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hadn't even thought of this. That is a good little... Ugh.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to hide. And keep in mind, Ferguson's fingers are on everything. So it's not just that... or his supporters or his close, people involved. I mean, nobody's really looked into the way federal funds are mixed in with state and local funds. And the nexus for federal investigations is anything above $5,000 worth of federal funding that vanishes or disappears or gets used or abused or misused. And so all of these grant grifting operations that we see in our state all around us, that we know there's something wrong, even if they say it's legal, there's clearly something unethical going on here. And nobody investigates.
Right.
The state patrol has been pulled off of that. They aren't allowed to investigate. I mean, the only time you'll ever see them pull up a public integrity case of some kind, even through the auditor's office investigations, it's only when either the target of the investigation is some low-level minion so stupid and incompetent that they just got caught and they couldn't hide anymore, or they were a disfavored part of the clique that was involved there, and so therefore that's an easy way to get them out, right? Everybody's stealing money, but let's go after the one person that we caught or that we don't like, let's get them. So imagine if for the first time in a generation somebody actually starts prosecuting or investigating or genuinely taking the full force of the federal government and actually looking into these cases.
Yeah, that would be nice. If you want to watch that full interview, by the way, with Glen Morgan, we are offering for the first time ever a major discount on Patreon. And here's why. I want everybody who cares about consuming media that holds Bob Ferguson accountable to be able to access our coverage for the first year of Bob Ferguson's administration. If you go patreon.com/undivided and use the promo code Watchdog, you can get 30% off the entire next year of your undivided membership. And really, we look at this as our top priority, certainly for next year and the years to come, is holding Bob Ferguson accountable. There is no leader in our state who is going to require a watchdog journalism more than Bob Ferguson. We already know he has a long history of abusing his power, using it against his political enemies, withholding records when it's improper for him to do so. And so you have our commitment that we are going to be all over him. We're going to be all over everything he does from the day that he takes office until he is out of office. And frankly, that's the same in the way we operate for all elected officials. But Bob Ferguson is a special kind of corrupt. And so we want to make sure that if a membership has been out of your reach, that we try to get everyone access to it. 30% off if you go to patreon.com/undivided and use the promo code Watchdog. We're going to be running that promotion until November 17th.